This is Monday Morning Meditations number 269 on the Rising Man podcast with Jeddy Azuma. Let's be more real in our communication. What's up, everybody? Happy Monday morning to you out there. Thank you for tuning in here with us for another Monday Morning Meditations on the Rising Man podcast. Without further ado, today's Monday Morning Meditation is how to be more real in your communication. All right, so every one of us has had a conversation like this before. You run into somebody at the coffee shop, you haven't seen in a long time. Let's call him Jeff. Hey, Jeff, what's up, man? How you doing? Oh, I'm good, man. Life is good. How about you? And you have that moment. Maybe it even just passes in an instant unconsciously before you respond quickly with, I'm good. But are you really good? How many times do we have these surface level interactions with each other where I'm simply saying something that isn't actually the truth? It's just easy to give a response so that we can glaze over that topic and move on to the next trivial thing. Too many of us do this in our dialogue and our communication. And yes, maybe every conversation doesn't merit a deep dive into exactly what's burning inside of my heart right now. But what about the alternative? What if I run into Jeff at the coffee shop and I say, hey, Jeff, man, wow, good to see you. How are you doing? And he tells me how he's doing. And then he returns back, how about you, Jeddy? How are you doing? And I pause for a moment. Just take a pause. Maybe look off for a minute and say, you know what? How am I doing? Well, right now, actually, I'm doing okay. Yesterday, I wasn't doing so well. I got some tough news from a client of mine. I had a difficult conversation with my partner, but today I'm doing okay. I woke up this morning, I got to the gym, got some of that energy out, and I'm feeling better. And it's good to see you, Jeff. Now, comparing the first example to the second example of that response that I gave is very different. I'm giving the person I'm in conversation with a lot more information about what's actually happening with me. But the difference is that generates a level of trust, a level of relationship that's not possible when I simply give a reflexive response. Now, most of the time we're giving those reflexive responses because it's more comfortable. We want to just move past what's actually happening with me so we can talk about sports or talk about the weather or something else. It's deflective. Because to open up my heart and give someone a peek inside what's actually happening within me right now is a much more vulnerable thing to do. So most of us are not inclined to do that. But when we start having conversations on our terms, we start to communicate with the real, we can build deeper depth and trust with whomever I'm running into. Even if Jeff is not a really close friend of mine, I'm able to create possibilities where they didn't exist before. Consider this. If you only ever go around in your life reflexively responding to questions like, how are you doing? What's going on in life? How's your work? How is this? How is that? And you're just giving the surface level responses that deflect to the next topic of conversation, then all of your relationships are only existing on the surface level. Now, it's up to you to decide who and how and when and where you allow to go deeper into your dialogue. But that gets to happen on your terms. And from what I hear, from what I witness out in the world, there's a lot more opportunity for deeper conversation amongst us. Now, what if that first response I gave Jeff was what he was expecting to hear? He's expecting me to say, I'm good, so we can move on collectively. But instead, I gave him the response that I gave. You know what? I wasn't doing so well yesterday. I'm just doing okay today. What if that gives Jeff the permission to say, wow, you know what? I said I was good, but I'm actually going through something similar. I just broke up with my girlfriend of 3 years last week, and I'm hurting right now. See, there's a possibility that didn't exist when we were both just giving reflexive responses. Now, the reason I bring this up today is because I'm about depth, I'm about trust, I'm about deepening the relationships and the possibilities we can have with each other. And that's a big part of what we do here at Rising Man. We bring the real because the real is what's actually happening inside each and every one of us. But that requires confidence. That requires courage and trust within myself that I can share whatever's going on with me. There's a possibility that I share what's actually going on with me with Jeff, and he's caught off guard, and he says, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. And he gets a little bit awkward, a little bit confused and befuddled. And that's okay. I answered his question on my terms. You asked me how I was doing. I gave you a response that was genuine to me. I didn't give you a response that would take care of you. I didn't give you a response that would just make you feel more comfortable and help us both avoid a deeper conversation and more intimate relationship and connection. That's not my responsibility, but it requires that courage and trust within me that regardless of what Jeff's response is, I'm going to be all right. I'm here communicating on my terms. I'm answering questions the way I choose to answer questions. If you ask me how I'm doing, if you ask me how my relationship is, you ask me how my kids are, I'm going to give you an honest response. Because for me, there's no sense in just glancing off the surface. I don't have time for that. If you don't want to know the answer to that question, then don't ask. But most cases, I think the likely outcome is that you'll have more possibilities emerge. People who get curious and say, whoa, I didn't realize you were going through that. Tell me more. I'm actually going through something similar. How are you navigating that? And all of a sudden, we got deeper trust, deeper bonds, deeper relationships being built, which is how we build the fabric and foundation of our communities. So consider this next time somebody asks you how you're doing. Take a pause. Look off for a second. Say, you know what? Let me think about that for a second. I was going to tell you that I'm just doing good because that's what you expect. But how am I doing right now? And really check in with yourself and answer that honestly as you can. Such a simple practice to bring everywhere in your day. Because I bet that you get asked this question at least 50 times a week in all different circumstances. And what if out of those 50 times you took half of them and started answering that question differently? And then soon enough, every time you're being asked this question, you're answering it honestly and authentically, communicating on your terms. And that's the mark of a rising man. I hope you enjoyed this topic of conversation. Please bring this practice into your life and share it with your friends, share it with your community so we can all start to be more real with each other. And make sure you tune in next week for another Monday morning meditation here on the Rising Man podcast. Until then, rise up and claim your destiny.